everyone. Welcome all to our meeting. And Mr. Doheny, we're ready to get going.
Hey,
Okay, okay, but first I got to read a letter because we're going to have a little bit of a special session. Honorable members of City Council, in accordance with the Virginia Beach City Code 2-21, and by authority vested in me as the mayor of Virginia Beach, I hereby call for a special formal session of the Virginia Beach City Council on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 1 p.m. City Council Conference Room, room 2034, Building 1, second floor, 2401 Courthouse Drive. The purpose of this special session is to conduct public briefings on the City Council comments, discussions, and listed in the attached and published agenda. At the conclusion of the public briefings, the City Council comments discussion, the Council will convene into a closed session where the following matters will be considered: publicly held property in District 2 and District 6, and personal matters, council appointments of boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, task force, and appointments. At the conclusion of this closed session, the City Council will reconvene into an open session for the purpose of certifying the closed session. The special formal session will be broadcast on cable TV and virginiabeach.com and Facebook Live, and signed by Bobby Dar. Okay, we're ready to roll.
excellent. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first briefing, but before we get going to the first briefing, just want to make note of a slight change on the agenda. One of the items, agenda item D, the disparity study update, for logistical reasons, is going to have to move to another date. So that one will be rescheduled at another time. So that's a slight change on the agenda. But the first item will be a briefing regarding starting Hampton Roads, and this will be led by Nancy Gurdon, President and CEO of Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable. So at this time, Nancy will come to the stage and come to the podium and kick off the presentation. And Nancy, I got several people listed here. Who's
So Lauren and I are doing it.
okay? So it'll be Nancy Gurdon, President and CEO, and also Lauren Roberts, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce. So Nancy, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer, and thank you, members of City Council. We are truly excited for the invitation today. And Lauren and I are actually going to tag team this, but two things. We'd like to update you on a really exciting in-force activity, Starting Hampton Roads. A little bit of background of how it happened, what's happening with it today, and where we want to go, and then obviously entertain any comments or questions that you might have. So I just want to say a couple things. Number one, this is truly a regional activity. It literally started well over a year ago when we, a number of us who are regional organizations, the Alliance, the Workforce Council, the chambers, others, looked around the region. Obviously, we were seeing data that concerned us about outmigration and retaining our talent. And so that really precipitated a study well over a year ago now between the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, whom I know you know, and the roundtable to really understand sort of what was the thinking behind it. Why were people staying? Why were they going from Hampton Roads, big picture? And so we started with that, and we're fortunate enough to get some seed funding from VEDP, Virginia Economic Development Partnership, that is now complete. So we'll give you a little background on what happened with that, some of the amazing results that happened way beyond anybody's expectations, and then we'll roll forward from there. So again, just a little background, as I mentioned, we wanted to understand a little bit more about what was happening in Hampton Roads. And so we engaged an organization called Fahrenheit, who did some work for us to really help us understand what was going on in the region. Fast forward to today, we didn't present a lot of statistics. We know that's really not the purpose of the meeting, but we can tell you a couple things. The good news is Hampton Roads and Virginia, broadly speaking, are doing better in terms of not losing as much outmigration and talent, but we are not attracting enough. And there was a recent U-Haul study, many of you may look at it, it's kind of like an early warning signal for data that the census does. And a number of the regions that we compete with across the country, the Raleighs, the Jacksonvilles, the Nashvilles, and so on, we're continuing to gain population. And we are a little flat. So we don't want to be flat, we want to grow. So there's no change in the rationale for why this is so important for the region, broadly speaking. So a little bit of why we learned at the time why people were concerned about leaving Hampton Roads. Some of it probably wouldn't surprise you. a little bit about cost of living, safety, and again, safety is more of a perception, generally speaking, issue, not just around city A or B, because again, we weren't really testing city data at the time. And I wanted to know more about career opportunities. They weren't as widely known. People weren't knowing about these opportunities. So they said in the survey, and they also had some concerns about healthcare. So these were some of the things we wanted to really understand. And so a couple things jumped out at us. Number one, no surprise, younger non-military remote workers were the ones really who were the most likely to leave. But the other really amazing thing we learned about boomerangers, people who had grown up here, gone to school here, maybe left town for one reason or another, really came back. And we didn't really mean to study that, but that came out loud and clear as a really amazing thing. And the reason they came back were some of the reasons that we thought people were leaving: cost of living, job availability. And so we really realized we have a communication problem here as much as anything, not so much a data problem. So that really led us to the program. And I'm going to turn it over to Lauren at this point. But what happened here was we were fortunate, as I mentioned, to get Virginia Economic Development Partners to fund a pilot, which is this landing page that we started called Start in Hampton Roads that we ran from July to the end of December. And Lauren's going to tell you about what happened there and why this is so exciting. So Lauren, over to you.
So like Nancy said, we worked with the organization called DCI. They are a talent and marketing and economic development agency, and they did a fantastic job of working us through our core campaign audiences, as well as I'm going to show you a map here in just a few moments through their target market ID exercise. But obviously, we were looking at our audience of our job seekers, the talent in our key industries here in Hampton Roads. We walked them through that so they knew exactly who we were looking for our region. Our quality of life chasers. I am not originally from Hampton Roads. I love Hampton Roads, and I love Hampton Roads because of our quality of life here in Hampton Roads, and that's a story that we need to tell far and wide. And so we're telling that story to those quality of life chasers, those folks that want to come somewhere where they have the beach, they have mountains within a few hours, they have city, they have rural, they have everything that they could be looking for. And of course, we would be remiss not to focus on our veterans. Our transitioning service members are a target market for us. We want our military members and their families to remain in our region after their tours of duty are over. So of course, we looked at how we could really capitalize on keeping them here. Our target markets, again, this was done through a target market ID exercise with the organization DCI. You'll see there the top 7 markets that we were advertising in through our paid media campaigns. One of the things that really struck me on this is the cost of living in many of these other locations. Think of California, think of DC. As Nancy mentioned, we are finding that our boomerangs, those folks that lived here once, went away where they thought the grass was greener and quickly learned it's not. A lot of those folks are going to these other states, but then coming back to us. They're realizing that DC is not all that affordable and that they can get a whole lot more in their quality of life here in Hampton Roads. So certainly targeting those folks. These are 4 of 30 plus media samples. I hope when you first look at these, some of the things that jump out at you is our industries, our quality of life, our veterans. So these are things that we're going out across both social media and on Google so that our talent, those that we were looking to attract through talent, we're looking at these media samples saying, well, I want to know more about that location. I want to be part of that. That's a story that I want to learn. So again, capitalizing on the storytelling aspect of this fantastic region. So now I get the privilege of showing you my very exciting part. I am a data nerd, so pardon me here as I give you some very quick data points. But what has been absolutely exceptional from this initiative is that in 5 months, in 5 short months, we were able to reach 1.8 million people. So the impressions ranged at 1.8. We had 25,000 visitors coming to a landing page. We use the word landing page because it is not a full built out website intentionally. We built a small landing page where people could land and then find more information about many of our other organizations and departments. We've had 1,300 plus leads. Those are job seekers. Those are folks that found our landing page, went to a form and said, I want to know more. I am interested in Hampton Roads. I like what you have to tell. I want to potentially come there. So again, we have this ability to connect with leads all across the country. And I'm going to show you some of the places they're coming from in just a moment. Our top performing ad groups, probably no surprise to you, cybersecurity, and engineering, energy, maritime. Top metros, again, from our target ID exercise, Los Angeles, New York City, DC, Raleigh, Charlotte, places where we have been losing talent to for many years. Those people are looking at this landing page. They're saying, I'm interested in Hampton Roads. And now it's time to get those people back. Jobs in Virginia Beach. We thought you all would love to absolutely hear that they were the top searched keywords with more than 13,000 impressions and 1,000 clicks. So that means these are people going into Google and they are searching for jobs in Virginia Beach. They want to live in your city. They want to live in Hampton
It's worth
Roads.
mentioning, we're not saying that because we're in front of
Can you
you.
get microphone, Nancy? Microphone.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just saying, it's worth saying we are not pointing that number out because we're in front of the council of City of Virginia Beach. This is the top set of data, and we tell it to you because you are clearly, as a city, and you know it better than anybody, the mix of the incredible assets, quality of life to live here, and jobs. So that's what's exciting about it.
Thank you.
And then one other quick data point for you there, 52 cents, the cost per click for our Google ads, which generated 450,000 impressions. And again, keeping in mind that this was just a pilot amount of money, about $30,000 was used to get these numbers. So again, I'm not going into incredible detail here for you. You do, of course, have this in your packet. But if you look at our funnel there, really working down from the impressions to the visitors, to the folks that were spending more than 5 minutes on the landing page, and the number of leads we were able to capitalize on. Looking here at our Google search performance, very excited to see these top performing ad groups. Again, looking at the amount of money that was spent for what we were able to actually produce with that money. And again, because this was a very targeted campaign that was looking at our industries and at cities and states where those folks are, and we want them, of course, to come to Hampton Roads. And then we felt this was incredibly interesting too, looking at our top performing metros. The reason there's two of them on there is one is for the Google paid search and one is for the display ads. So looking again at those top cities and looking at the impressions and the number of clicks that are coming through from those cities as well. Nancy and I were very excited to see that Raleigh, Durham, and of course Charlotte were on there because we've heard those cities for quite some time. As you know, both of those cities have very strong marketing campaigns as cities themselves, where they funnel a lot of money into this. So again, very little dollars. We're able to really kind of show you that we can target and play game with these folks as well. And the top performing keywords, as we said, we were not just putting this in here because we were in front of you today. Jobs in Virginia Beach was our #1 keyword phrase there, according to our data. Of course, jobs in Virginia there being a very strong second. So there is an interest in Hampton Roads. There's an interest in jobs in this region. It's certainly something that we want to capitalize on. I think it's also important to note there are affordable places to live, engineering careers, housing affordability, many of those other keywords that we talk about in many capacities all of the time. Again, just another Google display ads performance. I wanted you to see here that the total cost for this one over 5 months was $3,300, and we were able to get impressions of 474,000, which gives us that 52-cent cost per click, which is incredible. There are 4 of our top performing ads for you based off impressions, the clicks, and our click-through rate. Again, looking at our coastline, looking at our beautiful beaches, looking at the quality of life that we have here, and of course, looking at capitalizing on keeping our veterans and their families in this region. And then finally, we wanted to show you some top engaged companies. Nancy and I and the team were very happy to see that we are playing game here with folks from Google and Meta and Apple and Amazon Web Services. These folks are looking at our region. Many of them are looking at our region because of the high quality of life and the story we have to tell in that aspect. And then again, looking at our top engaged job titles from software engineer, project engineer, technician, and the whole way down. So we know that there is great interest in this region. We know that we are able to fill some of those workforce gaps that we have seen in some of these targeted industries. It's just telling that compelling story that we have. So Nancy's going to tell us briefly about our 2026 next steps that are in the works.
So a couple things. As I mentioned, we were fortunate to get some of that pilot funding from the EDP. It ended on 12/31. These are the dollars that yielded this result. And as many of you know, VEDP typically does not fund marketing, job placement, that sort of thing. So they really were not a source. So where we are is two things. Number one, there's an active application to Go Virginia Region 5 right now. We actually have a council meeting coming up on January 29th, and then it would go to the full board in March. And the Go Virginia request is to really continue to build out the job board component parts of this application. As you probably know as well, Go Virginia typically does not fund what I'll call direct marketing, but they do fund all of the assets. They certainly fund job placement in key industry clusters. So that's a live application. And I think this is also a good point, even though the roundtable and the Workforce Council, we led a lot of the early work. The Hampton Roads Chamber and the Chamber Foundation is the lead applicant for Go Virginia. They would manage this project on an ongoing basis on behalf of the region. I think that's really important to note, not just in charge of the Chamber, but the entire region. We have an advisory group that has representatives of organizations, the geography, the companies, and so on. So that is number one. We are not here today to ask you for match money for Go Virginia. We are not here for that. We are fortunate to have the Hampton Roads Workforce Commission Council to be our key match dollar. So this is for information so that you know that that's where this is moving ahead. Our goal is hopefully to get that passed by the council, state council in March. And what that would allow us to do is to continue to build out the capacity. Separate from that though, is we really want to take this to a whole nother level. We want to actually continue to push out the marketing. And to do that, not only in state, but out of state. As you can see from some of those really early sets of data, we have some key markets to push, we have some key messages to push, and we obviously have job openings. And so our goal is also to have a parallel set of dollars that we can use to really amplify the marketing message, build this out from a landing page into a full website. And again, that's down the road. So that's literally where we are here. And you know, I know this had come up as one possibility at the economic development meeting here in the city of Virginia Beach. Is there a way that there could be some funding from the city? We would certainly welcome that. But again, we are not looking for Go Virginia match money. We have got that covered. We're set. But we want to think ahead for how do we really want to amplify this. Final comment I will make, even though the VEDP dollars have ended, that landing page is out there. It's out there right now, and we are continuing to push on it through all of our partners, our cities, our companies. And as a matter of fact, COB Friday night, we got an inquiry from Forbes magazine. Very interested in, guess what? The Wave Park, what's happening there. Interested in the housing, interested in the community. So we immediately got it to our colleagues, Amanda and Natalie, immediately. They jumped on it. And as a matter of fact, I think there could be really some interesting follow-up just from Forbes. So there's a lot more follow-on interest here way beyond the landing page that I think is worth pointing out. So that in a nutshell is really where we are. There's, again, an active Go Virginia application right now, which we're excited about. We're continuing to think about further ways to amplify it. We've got a great partner in the Chamber to really lead and build and grow this for the whole region. And we're happy to answer any questions. And again, appreciated all of your support along the way. So thank you.
If it's okay, if I can, just start things rolling. Nancy, I just want to thank you and the Chamber. But the thing is, there's also a collaborative effort going on with other organizations. Like, we're also in the Alliance together. And, they're really working on a synergy about, really bringing the 757 together. And when you think about the potential that we have, and Nancy, if you could do me a favor,
Sure.
if you can switch a little bit to the, we're a little part of the Alliance hat. A couple months ago at the Sandler Center, there was a presentation by the Alliance about a very exciting program that identified the strengths of our region. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. First of all, this slide literally illustrates what Mayor Dyer said. I mean, there are 11 organizations. We meet, in fact, we just met this morning We really try to align our activities. And again, that's how this project started a year and a half ago, is who should lead it, who takes the lead, but again, it's on behalf of the whole region. And so another exciting activity is, at Go Virginia and Hampton Roads Executive Roundtable, we take a look at our growth industries, and probably wouldn't surprise anybody what they are. They're advanced manufacturing, defense, maritime, logistics, aerospace. And so the beauty of what has happened with the Hampton Roads Alliance is they have really, as our business attraction and development entity for the region, have really picked up on this, had a lot of outside work done, and have created something called the Hampton Roads Investment Playbook. In fact, I'm happy to share that link with members of the council if you would like. And really what it talks about is taking these industries and leaning into them as a region for a couple reasons. Number one, you look around the globe, look around the country, and think about all of the challenges and opportunities, if you think about that, and all of the assets Hampton Roads has, and the city of Virginia Beach. So what the Alliance has done is said, we're going to focus in on 4 industries, deal. Defense, energy, aerospace, and logistics. Great idea. It's all the key industries. And what we're going to do is we're going to lean into them for a couple things. We're going to lean into them for building out more supply chain and companies, for building in talent, and for building in innovation. And that is a regional effort. It is led by the Alliance, but many of us are involved in that. And it's really a very important implementation blueprint, if I can say that. And frankly, Start in Hampton Roads is part of the outreach of that playbook. In fact, we're envisioning an application right now with the Navy, to be honest, which would be obviously a great partner with the Alliance, the Workforce Council, and using Start in Hampton Roads as a way to kind of build some of that outreach. So there is a connection here, and thank you, Mayor Dyer, for bringing it up, and we'll make sure we get that information
Yeah, I
to
think
you.
there were, about 400 people showed up at the Sandler.
They would say 800 people
800
at the
people?
Sandler
I
Sandler
was off
Center.
by a few, yeah. But let me just say before we get to Worth and Josh, I think one of the things that we have to underscore here as a council and as a city that we do, we have been lauded for having one of the highest qualities of life. Companies are not going to come here without the QOL. They're not going to come here without the good schools, and the things to do, the rec centers, and the many things that the safest city, and things of that nature. And when we think about what we bring, and I'm very proud of the fact that I always say to my friends that, oh yeah, they got NATO in Norfolk, but everybody at one of them pretty much lives in Virginia Beach, and they cite the schools and the quality of life. And so once again, as we go forward, I think it's our duty as we go forward in any budget process to make sure we keep the quality of life. And the other thing is too, to create those opportunities. I love saying friends don't let their friends' kids move to Northern Virginia anymore. We'll get you a job down here. And so I think that is also part of this equation. And the other thing, when you talked about, we have such a vibrant military community here. And when you think about skilled people that are retiring, and we just got designated as one of the top places for military retirees to stay, and just people getting out, the plethora of opportunity.
If I could just say one thing, back to that original study, one of the pieces of information for people who live here in the region is that they themselves don't realize all of the amazing communities and locations and quality of life and things to do and jobs. So there's as much value on what I'll call internal to the region marketing about how great the region is to stay, grow, build from, as well as external. And I think that was an important takeaway that we had not anticipated in the study.
Thank you. Worth and Josh.
Thanks, Mayor Dyer. Thanks, Ms. Gordon and Ms. Roberts.
Thank
For the presentation and for the work. This is, to me, very exciting, having kind of been in this space for a number of years now, because to hear about the out-migration, that's not good. But to me, to stem that or be stagnant in our growth, we do have to get a better and louder message out there. And that's not to say HREDA is doing a great job, but that's for business recruitment, chambers for business. But we don't have a regional message like, in my opinion, like Charleston or Charlotte or Raleigh or Richmond. And the more because we're 17 or 18 localities and reach on our own, but I always say a rising tide lifts all boats. It's so appropriate to Hampton Roads. And the more we can get this behind this to to give our message out to the world of how great a lifestyle we have here, of all the assets. And economic development is workforce. So this is all great, and I fully support. Thank you.
Josh and then Cash.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you both so much. And it's wonderful work you're doing, number one, but and number two, we can see the results because of the eyeballs and the clicks and the interest that your site is driving. And many years ago, as you know, I was involved with that regional marketing initiative in 2018 and 2019, and one of the takeaways we had from that was before we could be effectively marketing ourselves outward. To your point, Lauren, we got to know who we are and be united within, and to be able to tell and walk that story. And the other thing I know we learned was that the old economic model of a company, you recruit a company here and then the workers come, is flipped upside down on its head these days. You've got to have the talented workforce in place in order to attract the companies, and so. A lot of that boils down to affordability and housing, but that we need to do and are doing a better job of going after those job seekers, those quality of life chasers, the veterans, as the mayor was saying, because I mean I'm here to tell you, I grew up in a cold weather state and it was 70 degrees here this past weekend in January, and I mean we are extremely fortunate to have. The climate we have, the outdoor amenities, the investments in parks and our rec centers and all of the other community amenities that we have. But these, I mean, if you look at each one of those jobs and the people showing interest in our region, these are the high-paying jobs that everybody is talking about that we want to try to attract here. So thank you very much for the work you're doing, and look forward to seeing more.
Thank you. Cash.
So I'm grateful that you gave such a wonderful presentation. I'm a big fan of the DEAL, right? The acronym for DEAL. I think its message is timely. It's right on. Job fairs. We need to have more job fairs because that's marketing in its highest form, right? You can do it from television. You can do it from a podcast, but job fairs really planted in the community. So I'm looking forward to staying connected with you with job fairs.
Absolutely.
I told District 7 that we would like to have a job fair every 90 days. And we did that because I went to the Sandler Center and we got the message about the DEAL, which we were inspired, right? Defense, energy, acoustical, and logistics. I mean, we need to feel, not just have them as jobs, but to fill them, right? And so with the right messaging, uniform messaging, we can be effective. And so I'm on board. Thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you for that support. That's great. Yeah, and back to the partners. That's exactly what's envisioned. We didn't even mention our higher education community colleges. I mean, obviously, all those amazing students and all that amazing talent we want to keep in Hampton Roads. So that's another angle. And certainly these job fairs, they are really critical. There's no question about it. So thank you for that feedback. And we will actually share that back also with our partners on the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I also share too, we are doing this in tangent with our Hampton Roads Workforce Council. We actually just had a call right before this with them today. They want to use the momentum of this really being the outreach and an open door to get more eyes on Hampton Roads and be able to take that and escalate that from a workforce standpoint. So whether that looks like job fairs or whatever that may be, Sultan Camp does a fantastic job with our Veterans Employment Center. There's a lot of opportunity there. And so we are working hand in hand with the Workforce Council to get that done.
Hey, anybody else? Okay, let me say thank you, but let me just finish on another note too. I'm on a number of the things up on the board, and one of which is the Workforce Council. And, this gives so many people opportunities. Not every child is geared to college. A number of years ago, 5 mayors went to Germany and looked at apprentice programs, internship programs. And then, Nancy, you're acutely aware of the shipbuilding industry needing, 5,000 skilled workers. What an opportunity for somebody to get into a trade and maybe come out of high school making up to $75,000 or more. When we built the Lesnar Bridge, we had to import welders from Maryland at some pretty big bucks to do that stuff. But we have the talent here. And I just want to thank you because I think it's important people know what's going on regionally and what we're doing, to make this a better and stronger region. And I just want to thank both of you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the invite.
Thanks a bunch.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, the next presentation will be provided by Andrew Locke, who is the chairperson of your Cannabis Advisory Task Force. He will come and give City Council a briefing regarding considerations for preparing for administering adult use of cannabis programs in Virginia Beach. Andrew, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I may be the tallest speaker you have today. Okay, ready? Thank you for allowing the Cannabis Advisory Task Force, or the CATF, to speak to you today. I'm Andy Locke. I'm the former chair of the task force, and in the audience today are a number of members of the task force, and I thank them for their time and their volunteerism. The purpose of the task force is outlined on page 2 of your packet, is to advise the city on issues relating to the implementation of a recreational or adult use cannabis program. I'll use the terms recreational and adult use interchangeably in this presentation, and they are one and the same. The timing for this presentation is appropriate as we believe the proposed legislation will pass into a law and implementation of an adult use program may happen rapidly. Given the limited time we have today, I'll refer you to the pages in the presentation while I focus my comments at a high level on the salient points for your consideration. So to give you some background, on pages 6 and 7, provide information as to where we currently stand with respect to cannabis legalization and prior legislation currently in place. So first, cannabis remains illegal at the federal level. However, the federal government has deferred to states on cannabis programs, citing states' rights issues. Second, medical cannabis is currently legal and operational in Virginia. Third, adult use bills, known as the Rouse bills, have been approved by the legislature in each of the past 2 years, only to be vetoed by Governor Youngkin. Governor-elect Spanberger has indicated support for a well-regulated cannabis marketplace and has indicated that she will sign a bill if brought before her. The new bill currently being negotiated is expected to be similar to the Rouse bills previously submitted, and those bills are what the CATF has based its work on. In 2025, the state legislature formed a bipartisan joint commission referenced in the document before you as the JLC. In late 2025, the JLC made recommendations for changes to the Rouse bills. These recommendations are being considered now. Note that the black text boxes in your presentation are the JLC recommendations that are different from the Rouse bill. You'll see an example of that on page 8. There you go, right there, you see on the bottom there. The bill and the JLC recommendations anticipate that a majority of the administration oversight and enforcement of an adult use program falling under the Cannabis Control Authority, or CCA, which is a state entity. However, the specific permissions are provided to localities. Examples of this are zoning, signage, the ability to object to applications, taxation and fees, etc. These permissions are outlined in part on pages 7 through 12, and we'll touch on them in our recommendations. Assuming the bill is finalized, approved by the legislature, and the governor signs, adult use could go into effect as early as the end of September of 2026, this year, just over 9 months from today. The CATF has made 17 recommendations for the city to consider. I'll go through these at a high level and be happy to answer any questions you may have. So recommendations have been broken into 3 categories: public safety, community outreach, and zoning. Public safety, page 14. The Rouse bill had a provision for localities to opt out of adult use cannabis sales. If opt-out is allowed, the city should consider whether it wishes to do so and understand the process and ramifications for opting out. The JLC, as you see in that black text box, has recommended not having an opt-out provision, and we believe that localities will not be allowed to do so, so this may be a non-issue. On page 15, the city should consider setting up a review and approval procedure for applications. The process is when applications are received by the CCA, Cannabis Control Authority, they will be forwarded to the city, which will then have 3 days to accept or object to the application. So multiple different departments may have to review in an expeditious manner. Please note, final procedures regarding this process are being negotiated at the state level. Also, and this is important, we expect there to be a first wave of applications that will be substantial, and the city should plan for this from a resourcing standpoint. Pages 16 and 17, the city should consider allowable operating hours as well as ordinances as to where cannabis may be consumed and associated penalties. Page 18, the city should consider what fees and taxes to charge. The Rouse bill allowed localities to tax up to 2.5% on retail sales, while the JLC is recommending 3.5%. Other fees should be considered as well. Finally, the city may want to consider the use of the proceeds, such as economic development / tip to reduce the loss of tobacco tax revenue, funds being allocated to schools, etc. Community outreach. On page 21, the city should consider implementing youth prevention and general health risk campaigns, advertising, social media, collaborating with health departments and schools, etc. Next page, the city should consider providing workplace education to maintain safe and compliant workplaces and resources for employers. Page 24, very important. The city should provide adequate training to law enforcement and first responders, including enforcement considerations such as drug driving training and responding to those experiencing distress from the use of cannabis products. Also communicate clear rules regarding where cannabis can be consumed, particularly public spaces. Consider how to communicate such rules so as to educate the public. Page 26, consider if and how to prioritize social equity and micro business licenses through technical assistance, reduced fees, grants, etc. The JLC has recommended roughly 50% of retail licenses to be reserved for micro businesses. And finally, within community outreach, consider within the parameters of the legislation whether and how to allow and provide oversight to private consumption permits and adult-only events, including farmers markets. It appears this may not be a day one issue, as no clear legislation is currently in place allowing such venues or events, but it's something that the localities will need to plan for. Zoning. Consider text amendments to current city zoning ordinances regulating various land uses within the cannabis industry. This includes cultivation, processing, testing, retail, and also the consumption venues. A special note here, the Rouse bill set a minimum distance between retail facilities at 1,000 feet. JLC recommended 1 mile. It appears that after negotiations are done that 1,000 feet will be the minimum, but localities may require more if desired. Need to consider this in the context of such areas like the oceanfront. You know, do we want a cannabis store every block? 1,000 feet may allow for that. Pages 30 and 31 consider whether different zoning districts should allow or restrict different cannabis-related uses. For example, is processing an allowable use for second-floor buildings at the oceanfront? Also, should there be any additional city permits, registration requirements similar to short-term rentals? Page 32, consider whether any additional signage restrictions should be required above and beyond state restrictions, and there will be verbiage in the bill regarding signage. The signage language in the current bill is currently being negotiated, but is considered to be in alignment with what we've seen in other states. So in summary, we expect a bill similar to the Rouse bills to be signed into law during the next legislative session. Certain fine points are still being negotiated, and the city should review the final verbiage. If the bill is signed into law, adult use may start as early as September, maybe November of 2026, 9 to 11 months from now. We expect a large first wave of applications that will require the city to have processes and procedures for city review. Across a number of departments. The city should consider affected departments and workflows in order to meet that 30-day response period, the accept or object to an application. The city should consider tax and fee schedules and application of the funds received. The city should consider operational issues for the participants, such as days and hours of operation, signage limitations, et cetera. Cities should consider outreach programs, including youth prevention, first responder training, and any social equity micro-business initiatives. And finally, the city should consider zoning issues and any text amendments to ensure that cannabis-related businesses are appropriate for the zoning and zoning districts. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Michael, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Locke. Appreciate you being here, and thank you for your service as a member of the task force
Thank you.
for years. And I just want to acknowledge the other members of the task force who are here, including the newly elected chair, LaTanya Warren. So congratulations, Ms. Warren, and thank you for being here. There's a lot to unpack here, but I just thought I would share some of my thoughts. I don't really have a question, but I'm curious what other questions that other members of council may have. Going back many years, I think the city of Virginia Beach was very wise to create this committee and this task force, and we did so, gosh, about 5 years ago, I think now. And we were anticipating changes in cannabis laws that we knew would be coming, and then those changes were kind of delayed or caught up in the legislative process for years. And it seems like changes may be upon us very soon now. And that's certainly the expectation that I think most people who are paying attention have. And it emphasizes I think the wisdom that the city employed in creating this task force to best position ourselves to mitigate whatever downsides could exist as part of moving to a adult use, recreational use model, and also optimize any of the opportunities that present themselves, economic development opportunities, opportunities for small businesses in Virginia Beach. I think the committee has been working very hard to do that. I also think these changes are going to catch a lot of people by surprise. People have very mixed uses about cannabis, but not only on the topic, but how it's used, how it's sold, where it's used, where it's sold. And those are all issues that the task force has sought to address, and I thank them and I compliment them. I think the community engagement that you noted is going to be critical for Virginia Beach in terms of both sharing awareness about these changes and also creating an understanding about what power or what influence the localities have versus what the state is going to authorize. And I'll give you an example of how it's played out just in the last few years, because obviously people can consume cannabis in their homes.
Right.
And a lot of people don't consume cannabis in their homes. They consume it in their hotel rooms and they consume it on the boardwalk. But even within people's homes, if you live in a townhome, we've seen how their neighbors can be impacted. And we've seen, for example, the limitations that a municipality has to enforce these things. And that has caused tension between neighbors, and it has also caused tension between the municipality and some of the people, the city of Virginia Beach in our case, and people who live here. So there's a lot to unpack, and I think the task force has done a really good job. I think we're the only locality in the Commonwealth with a task force, and I really think that it's really smart that we have been laying this groundwork for a long time, because as you can see, there's a lot of things to figure out here. I really want to say, I think on our zoning side, we've got to get smart, and we've got to get, I do have one question about that. We've got to get smart and we've got to get prepared to think about where sales and manufacturing might occur in Virginia Beach, sales, manufacturing, and processing, and what control, if any, the city would have in that, and how those permits would be issued, and what, the mechanics of all that. So I'll be interested to hear more about that if you could. But before that, I just have one comment. At the same time, I have a concern about how this rolls out with public safety. There were a lot of recommendations here, and a lot of them involve our police department. As you know, for reasons, some of the reasons that are beyond our control, some of the reasons that are within our control, Virginia Beach is experiencing, like many other communities, a deficit in filled police officer positions in our city. And yet it feels like every time we meet on a Tuesday, seem to be having greater and greater expectations on those police officers. And I have a concern about that. And I have a concern about, laws are on the books, but there's only, the police officers have to make decisions about how they prioritize enforcement in the name of public safety. And I think we need to be mindful of that as we're contemplating providing direction to the police department. First things first. And I know we have an excellent police department here, and I have every expectation that we'll be able to, effectively make those prioritizations to keep our community safe. So I just want to make a note about that. But any thoughts on the zoning and how we can be positioned and prepared to respond there?
Well, the CATF has done some work on the zoning, wasn't ready to present it to today, has some recommendations that would be glad to share in the near future, but we do believe that zoning is critical and need to have a well thought out zoning plan there. I do agree with your comments about it's critical to get ahead of it and to roll out your program both at the state and the local level in an organized manner. You can look at the New York State, who went through a rollout about 2 years ago, and it was very disorganized, and it created a lot of problems, and it opened up a space for what's called intoxicating hemp products. You may be familiar with those, to come in and fill the void. And once you get this intoxicating hemp products, was a gray market area, really bordering on illicit. Once you get these gray market illicit products into your market, it's really hard to get them out. So to have an organized rollout, it sucks out that air for those illicit gray market companies to come in, and it makes for as Governor-elect Spanberger said, she supports a well-regulated market, which includes oversight, enforcement, regulation, all those things. So I think that is critical in rolling out a program at both the state and the local levels.
Okay, go Cash and then Stacy.
So I'm always grateful for this conversation. I think we need to have this conversation. Is very important for us. It's kind of like when I started looking at cannabis as a revenue source for Virginia Beach. We can't look at cigarettes anymore like we used to because that's declining. Vaping and cannabinoid is becoming more prominent than cigarettes. But with that being said, education. I think you have done well by placing Latanya Warren as the chair. She is all about education. She educated me, and in return, I've educated my community. So I think there's two parts to this that I like to stress, is education. Cannabinoid or cannabis is not going away, right? Those are facts.
That's my assumption, yeah.
Right? But as a municipality, we have the power to capitalize on that. We can either do nothing or it continues to have a revenue source that we can't tap into. And then we'll put that on the taxpayers. And so very wisely, we should get ahead of it and put in education and protocols. We've got a task force, which I think sets us apart from other localities. And so with us being a resort town, a resort city, I think for us, the wise thing for us to do is education when it comes to our police, our schools, youth organizations. But most importantly, it's parental education, right? And so we are a governing board, but without our parents, then we have really no power unless the parents empower us. And so we've been elected by the parents, we've been elected by the community. And so with that being said, we will push it back, education to the parents, right? So with that being said, once you have education in the homes, then we can make for a very productive conversation, one of revenue, right? If we don't do anything about the revenue, then it just goes away and it's on the taxpayers. So my 2 points I like to make on this is thank you for your presentation. I'm grateful for the task force because I do see the educational component of it. 2 is we've got to capture this revenue source before we transfer it to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay, Stacy, and then Jennifer.
Thank you very much for your presentation. This is not my bailiwick, and this is normally I don't speak about things I don't understand, but I'll give it a shot. I guess sometime back, and I had heard that as one of the early proposals was to give priority to people that had marijuana convictions and as far as establishing retail establishments. And do you have an idea of where that is in the process?
To my knowledge, that's not in the Rouse bill. What is in the Rouse bill is the micro businesses.
Okay.
Not quite the same.
Okay. Then I guess this will be determined at the state level if it hasn't already. But impaired driving, that from my understanding, it's more of a complex issue.
Very.
Because not only would somebody be smoking cannabis, but in many times it's in combination with either drugs or alcohol. So it makes it more of a complex issue. And I guess that's just something that our police chief and the city manager are going to have to be out in front of about how do we deal with that and giving them the resources to be able to address that issue up front. So just a comment.
Well, certainly, driving under the influence of cannabis is impairment. The difficulty is, unlike with alcohol, you can't just take a breathalyzer and say, oh, you're high, you're impaired. Cannabis, unlike alcohol, stays in your bloodstream for up to 28 days. So you could potentially test positive for cannabis that you used the previous night, and you're not impaired. So it's a real challenge for law enforcement, and there's certainly companies that are working on that. I would expect in the next few years that there will be a solution to give that test similar to with alcohol. But right now there isn't.
And then just one last comment as far as zoning goes. In your presentation, you talked about having overlay districts, and I would just see if we could explore the possibility of not only having overlay districts, but restricting the number of establishments within an overlay district. To say within a mile of each other or 1,000 feet of each other is one thing, but if there was a way to cap the number of establishments within a certain area, I think might give more community acceptance to the process.
In other states, there are certainly localities that have done that, so that is an option in my understanding.
Thank you.
Hey, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I thought I would be really familiar with this presentation, so I was catching up on some things. And then you kept saying the Rouse Bill, and that was the first time I've ever heard it called that. And I was kind of like, is it called the Rouse Bill? So I'll just say that I thank you for the work you're doing and that the task force is doing for localizing it, because I know what the state lift has been. And I know, the Rouse Bill does not legalize marijuana broadly, but it does create a framework for adult retail market.
That's right.
And the idea behind it, I know, is Aaron wanted to capture the revenue. So to say, hey, if this is something that's already happening, let's create a framework so we can get some education revenue is his goal. And we can ensure that there's some public safety efforts. Now there's a framework, we can regulate it, and we can create some rules that will hopefully promote public safety. But I know that because there are so many stakeholders involved and it's a statewide issue, that Aaron wanted to ensure, perhaps through the micro business way, that smaller actors can get involved as compared to the big organizations or groups that might already be able to come in and corner out the market to make sure there's room. Yeah, there's room for whether you have prior convictions or you're a smaller business kind of person, you can get your foot into this market. So trying to accommodate the different interests around the issue. But I thought I knew about this issue, but I learned something about this Rouse Bill. So
Well, I'm always happy to give a shout out to the locals as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Jennifer, maybe we can call it the Up in Smoke Bill or something. Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Locke, for your work on this. It's very good. I know it's been some time, and that's, but it sounds like the time is now. And so I asked Councilman Berlucci and the body, there's some issues I think you brought forward here that I think we need to address locally or start thinking about addressing here. And is the Cannabis Advisory Task Force the place to take this up, or how do we move forward? Assuming this is going to happen, I think it is going to happen in the next 3 months. I think we should be ahead of this and not behind it.
Session is going to started, and they're already down there now. So we'll know probably in the next coming weeks if this is going to be something that they're going to take up this session and what timeline they're going to give us. And I think with the work that they've done there, we already would have a good head start in terms of being able to jump it up. In terms of getting it set up. So Brent's going to actually start his weekly briefings to City Council starting next Tuesday, and this is going to be top of mind, probably top of whatever he presents to council as it relates to track how this thing is progressing, to give the council the time to figure out when this is going to come, and then we can start to activate some of the recommendations to bring back to council for consideration.
Okay. Let me just say, I am mixed on this for a number of reasons, but that being said, in government, we have to play with the cards that are dealt to us. And if we're gonna deal with it, let's deal with it in a very effective way. But I really take seriously, and Patrick, if you correct me if I'm wrong, Chief's Newtigate's thing, that a large degree of youth violence that is going on now is over the sale of marijuana. And I think this is, something that we really have to factor in, what's going on. Because if we can, do it right and turn it into something that would actually be a public safety, condition, and, would save some loss in life. I know we had some, homicides
We
that
do.
dealt with this trade, correct?
Correct.
Once again, it's going to be controversial no matter what direction we go. But once again, it's a situation that we just have to come to the table and deal with. And I think with the recommendations, and Michael, I think there was wisdom in putting this task force together. Because when the time really does come, we'll be far better prepared. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good work. Thank you for your effort. All right, moving on.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the next presentation will be provided by our Process Improvement Steering Committee, and it'll be given by our chairman and former councilmember Brad Martin. He's going to give City Council a review of the budget considerations that PISC is asking council to possibly consider as part of your fiscal year 26-27 budget process.
Hey, welcome, Brad.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to come after the cannabis. I'll ask you to stay focused, please. So it might be hard. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. Duhaney and Mr. Stiles. I am Brad Martin. I'm the chair of your Process Improvement Steering Committee, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present the task that you gave us, which was to look at your budgeting process and some of the items that you all go through every year. I don't have to tell you all how difficult that is. I am joined, I'd like to acknowledge the two chairs of this subcommittee, Sarah Welch and Bruce Johnson. They brought a ton of talent to the table here, and we did, quite frankly, a heavy lift over the last 6 months. We also have a couple of committee members in the audience, Clenise Platt and Donna Turner, and Larry Dodolo. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for your work. Just as far as the background goes, real quick, you all tasked us with this when you came through your budget season this past spring, and you gave us the task of looking at the budget and seeing, could we find some better processes and some better opportunities for potentially cutting some of the city budget. We did two things, really. We are going to recommend a longer-term methodology, but we also bring to you a couple of options for your immediate consideration. So I don't have to tell you the dictation that you gave to us that we were to collaborate and coordinate with the city manager's office to identify efficiency opportunities and cost savings measures. We started this project in July with a briefing from Kevin Chatelier and some of his staff after receiving your direction. We don't want to wait till this coming August when we would submit our formal report for the committee. We wanted to get going on this as quickly as you all wanted us to. So, like I said before, we see this as an ongoing project, but wanted to deliver these recommendations today, perhaps in time for your fiscal year 2027 budget deliberations that are obviously right on the horizon. After your original direction, we received further clarification from Councilmember Cummings that the real effort today was going to be to find $16 million in the budget. And obviously, you know that equates to about 2 cents on the real estate tax rate. Seems like it should be easy. We're talking about less than 0.5% of your $2.8 billion budget. But I want to tell you, and I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of work that went into this, and I'm proud of what we did. So, as far as our position goes, we do not opine on the appropriateness or the need or where the city budget should be. We were just given the requirement to come forward with this thoughtful, collaborative, and hopefully objective process. I do want to shout out and thanks very much to our city staff. They have been wonderful to deal with, specifically Kevin Chatelier and Caitlin James in the budget office, your two deputy city managers, Amanda Jarrett and Monica Krosky, and certainly our PISC staff support, who are Ed Feeney and Susan Salafranca and Peter Wallace. Before we get to the immediate considerations, I want to fast forward to what we consider a long-term operation of this, where we would potentially, or somebody would, some committee that you all decide, would potentially coordinate with 2 to 4 city departments each year and do a deep dive into the particular budgets that they are considering. And then we could really come with some strong recommendations as far as targeted opportunities for savings. Things we did not consider at this time, just because the time frame was too short. There is so much, and again, I don't have to tell you all how difficult this budgeting process is, but there's options like, do we charge a fee at the city dump for somebody to go dump their trash? We had a wonderful presentation by your Public Works Director, L.J. Hansen, on the capital improvement projects and where there could be some cost savings with that, but we didn't touch that at this time. One thing is clear, I don't have to tell you that this city is a remarkable machine. We have a $2.8 billion budget. About $800 million of that, or 30%, is generated from the real estate revenue tax income. And I do understand we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, but there really is precious little of the city's budget that can be identified as discretionary after we extract out the schools, federal and state obligations, and other things that you all have to fund. Short term, like I said, we were directed to focus on $16 million in cuts of revenue, or excuse me, cuts and or revenue. And again, that equates to about 2 cents on the real estate tax rate. Our deliberations were strictly monetary. We have an understanding that every single line item in your budget, whether it's Parks After Dark, or the Horse-Mounted Police Unit, or the aquarium fees, or lifeguards at Sandbridge, everything is an ox that somebody might see as getting gored. So we understand that there are difficult decisions to be done here. A consideration for you is really which of these programs are core services that the city deserves to provide and real impacts in our citizens' lives. So as far as recommendations for additional exploration, we were given the task of $16 million. We actually came up with $20 million. One idea that kept coming up was for us to ask the citizens, well, what programs would you like to cut? We understand you want to save on your real estate tax rate, but what are the city programs that you're willing to cut? Because we don't think that's ever really out there on the table. So we do want to gather the public's feedback on some of these important financial decisions. So as far as the $16 million, it's kind of small there, but you have it in your package. I do want to hit on a couple of these. Again, thinking about things that we didn't consider. We got $1.2 million up there in economic development. I see Natalie and Emily over there. Cash, are they burning holes through me with their eyes? A little bit. Okay. We had identified a 25% expense reduction in economic development. We didn't even consider where would that $1.2 million turn around and become revenue for the city. So we understand that with cuts, there may be impacts to revenues as well. So it's hard to stand here and recommend any of these individual cuts without going the second and third steps of understanding where those cuts are going to have impacts. As far as the aquarium goes, which is down there further, does an increased ticket fee lead to reduced visits at the aquarium? Is there a net loss there, or is it a net positive in terms of revenue and expenses? Or do we have some difficulty in logistics of whether there's a resident versus non-resident price at the aquarium? So the early childhood services item up there, it shows as basically a $1 million expense item. That's about a $2 million program. It's got about $1 million of revenue. So we are spending, as a city, $1 million in that program to affect, by our numbers, 121 families. That is probably a very important program for those 121 families. And I don't want to stand here and say we need to save $1 million by shorting those 121 families. But is that a cost-benefit analysis that you all want to consider? Moving to the next page, we talk about Parks and Rec. Did I move to the next page or not? I did. Parks and Rec. We talk about something as simple as adjusting a few days on the mowing cycles in the medians and in the city parks. Is that going to have a bigger impact on more bags of trash, more bags of cut grass that have to be there, more difficult maintenance on our machinery? So again, there are second and third and fourth level impacts of all of these items. Finally, this is the last page, and this shows the total of $20 million of cost reductions. We look at just a 5% expense reduction overall across human services, which would be about $1.1 million. Is that pens and pencils and paper clips, or is that personnel that would then not be able to make their mortgage in the city? So I want to tell you, and again, I don't have to tell you, what a difficult job this was for us to even take your $2.8 billion budget and find $20 million of possible reductions to it. Everything has a downstream effect. Everything probably has a multiplier effect, especially for what's going on in economic development. So that's our report. We do have $20 million of potential savings in your package for you. I want to thank you again. You all know that the Process Improvement Steering Committee stands ready to do whatever you all choose us to do, and we appreciate your thoughtfulness and your faith in us to pursue this project. So happy to stand by with any questions.
First of all, Brad, I want to thank you, Sarah, Bruce, the entire Process Improvement Committee. We were, Councilman Schulman and I were the liaisons to this project, and I think, except for the initial direction giving, we took a very hands-off approach. We did not want to be seen as the ones, leading you down the trail. I want to emphasize that the committee used the resources that Brad referred to. They used the staff. They went to department heads. They took input. This was not something that they went through the budget and picked out items themselves off the top of the bat or off the top of the hat. They did work with city staff and got recommendations, and there were items that they went through their process and decided to pursue. So it's been well thought out. I will say that, and I think Brad hit on this, every dollar that's spent in the city has a champion. There's not $1 that you can cut out of this budget, not one single dollar where 454 people are going to stand up and say, that's a great idea. Why did we do that years ago? Every dollar, as much as you may think that it's unnecessary or wasteful or not productive, there's somebody that really feels as though that's an essential city service. So as Brad said, this was not an easy process. It's not easy going through and making these recommendations because some of them hit home. and I'm sure that, well, some of them hit home for me, that I would tell you, I could probably make the argument, let's find it somewhere else. But again, that could be said for every single dollar that was made in this recommendation. The point of this process is to bring to council so that we can recommend to the city manager that these items, some of these items, if not all of these items, be pursued further. This is not a, here, do this. It's, let's look and see if there's a way or if there's something to this. And again, it's a $2.8 billion budget. And in giving directions, Sarah Welch asked very early on, are we hunting or are we fixing? And so I said, make no mistake, we're hunting. If we can fix along the way, that's great, but we're hunting. And they did. They really rolled up their sleeves. And the $16 million was not an accident. That was not an accident. As Brett said a number of times, the $16 million equals about 2 cents in our real estate tax rate. So that was a conscious goal, because to come out here and say, well, let's find a couple $1 million. Why waste the effort? You're not doing anything to reduce the cost of living in the city or to address the issue of government spending. So 16 million was, I thought, an aggressive goal. And boy, they took it to the next step to come up with $20 million of recommendation. I feel confident that this will be taken to heart. It will be further pursued, and hopefully we can see some results in this year's budget. And the citizens will see that the folks on this council, we hear you, we understand the cost of government is accelerating at a pace that over the last several years that we can't continue to have it accelerate. And this is a very conscious, good faith effort to bring some hard recommendations to say, let's look at these items, let's start here. And as Brad said, I think this is an ongoing process. There's no way you can take a budget that's literally as thick as the old yellow pages, for those that can remember those days, and go through it in a period of 6 months and come back with some with every recommendation that could possibly be done. But this is a great start. You have a lot to be proud of. You guys did a fantastic job, took it very seriously, and I think that this council has something to look at and to get to the city manager and say, we'd like you to proceed, or like you to pursue where we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I did not acknowledge Councilman Cummings and Councilman Schulman, who have just been absolute champions, whether it's connecting us with city services. Josh, 3 years ago, after you were elected, but before you had even taken office, asked us if he could attend a meeting, and he did. And then Councilman Cummings did the exact same thing last year. And the amount of engagement, and not to disrespect any of you other 9, I apologize, but the amount of engagement that these two have had in the Process Improvement Steering Committee, whether we're talking about wonderful results in the planning department or this project or other ones, have been fantastic. Cash was a prior member of our Process Improvement Steering Committee, so thank you for that.
Okay, Jennifer, Josh, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation and for the work that your committee did. I agree. It's an important conversation, and it's complicated by the different demographics of our city. So my mind went to 3 places with no clear. So forgive me while I try to work it out. So the first place my mind went was the emphasis on property tax reduction. But like in my district, there are a lot of renters. So I know this is something that's come up in a few budget cycles, that when we look to reduce the real estate tax to benefit property owners, what benefit do renters get in our city? Are they seeing also something that's helping them with their budgets? Which then makes me think of, I'm looking at Ms. Krosky when we had the presentation on the demographics of our city. So the population, the outmigration of young folks, and I'm just going to say what Mayor Dyer has said. I'm only repeating what he said about the great. I'm only repeating what I've heard him say which is the graying of Virginia Beach. So then it would make sense that perhaps some of our folks who have been here longer own their homes, and younger folks are trying, but there's not the inventory to buy, or they can't afford to buy, so they're renting. But then some of the programs, I would assume, benefit kids, and that would be the younger. So when you say, you know, we cut services to the library or to Parks and Rec for after school, and how do you weigh the balance of all the different constituencies? So like when I'm out in my district and it's like, hey, what's important? What do you need? And for the most part, people are okay, but they mention their kids. I want something for my kids to do to keep them out of trouble, to keep them, you know, involved in something positive. So outside of school, that doesn't cost a lot of money. I know that, you know, Parks and Rec and our library, it's not their sole responsibility, but some families rely on that. And then finally, the human services cuts. And I know some time ago we got a presentation because there's federal cuts. So already they are under resourced because of the cuts in federal dollars. And who's to say whether or not they'll capture any state money? So, you know, considering the funding sources, so y'all, I know y'all know, but this is where my mind is going as we're considering this, you know, renters, kids, or young adults, or even adults who are trying to raise their kids in our city, how our city services what's core, but what's also maintaining the quality of life that we like to boast about. So thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go with Josh and Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brad, thank you very much to you and to the rest of the committee for your hard work on this. And as Councilmember Cummings said, we sat in on a couple of these, and it's not easy. And you know, we sit through it every year, the myth of the $2.5 million budget, because we see that, just as Brad said, as you kind of strip the layers down, you know, each of these programs impact people and lives. And so I appreciate the sensitivity there. I was very supportive of the process and the work that you all did, knowing, of course, that some of the recommendations might be, you know, difficult to kind of reconcile, and also full-minded that we have an entire half of our city government basically not at the table, being our schools. We can't, I guess, force or require schools to go through a similar exercise, but I think, but I think it would be something worth opening those kinds of discussions about. And, you know, I mean, just a couple of these, I mean, we could each one of us do this, but I mean, but I know Mounted Patrol, for example, you know, has a really important role in community policing, oceanfront crowd control, our festivals, and, you know, and I met with the sergeant there who said, you know, that's one of the only times where they go into a neighborhood and kids get excited to see police officers. You know, and of course we all have National Night Out in our neighborhoods, and they seem to be all over the place. And you know, cutting the grass, I think we'll probably get a bunch more phone calls, no doubt, because people will see the grass longer. But and that's only a couple $100,000. But and you know, something that we had talked about when we were together, and you were meeting as a group, was, you know, some of the things that we offer, like our rec center memberships, our out of school time and childcare. Those have, you got to pat your head and rub your stomach in circles to get on a wait list to maybe get all your kids into one of those things. And for somebody like me, I've got 3. If you get 2 in and 1 out, then, you know, then you're in trouble. But I just think a lot of these things where the demand is outpacing the supply we're able to offer, maybe we're off on pricing, and I was glad to see that you had made those recommendations, but recognizing, of course, that, you know, there are going to be families that are not able to absorb those cost increases should we, you know, choose to move forward with some of those, and obviously we have to be sensitive. To Councilwoman Rouse's point, the real estate tax benefit, we have been talking about this for years. You know, especially when you look at you know, people who own larger more valuable pieces of property, people who own businesses, thereby owning multiple pieces of property through their businesses, I think see an outsized benefit when we focus on the real estate tax without considering other things like personal property tax, vehicle registration, other things that hit people who are renting and who don't own their homes. And then lastly, like Councilwoman Rouse, I was concerned a lot about, just kind of the across the board, the 4 million in human services cuts, just knowing, like the Councilwoman said, that a lot of those monies are then placed alongside federal and state monies, and those are matching. So knowing what may or may not be coming, and then we wouldn't want to take $1 off the table when it meant we lose out on like $4. So can you maybe clarify a little bit on that front, Mr. Manager?
So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, as the council knows, a lot of the human services budget is predominantly state and federal pass-through money, and a lot of that is tied to different local matches, and the salaries and the budgetary monies and resources are used to trigger and meet those match requirements. So in some cases, if you take a local dollar away, you may lose $4. And currently right now, what's being contemplated is not approved yet, right? Going through Congress, the Trump administration is proposing to increase the local match requirements on different states, especially as it relates to their ability to meet certain error rates, right? And the error rates isn't just for the city of Virginia Beach. The error rates are for the entire Commonwealth. So if the entire Commonwealth misses out on an error rate, it could mean that the local match requirement goes from 25% to something like possibly 50%. These aren't approved yet, but these are things that are being contemplated as the federal government looks to tighten its budget as well. They're pushing down requirements on states, and the state is in return is going to push down those requirements on local governments. And we may need additional dollars to help meet a higher local match requirement.
Thank you. And just lastly, on the item number one, the economic development piece, I really appreciate you recognizing the potential revenue hit as a consequence of expense reduction, particularly with the people who are overseas trying to get new businesses here, who are then just opening up Virginia Beach to new markets and new industry. So those have got to be really carefully thought through, and hopefully we can take this and just kind of input it into the budget process and see what can stick and what makes sense.
Michael.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Martin, and all the members of the committee who are here and who worked on this. I think this is a very important exercise, and it's a really vital discussion. And I think you summarized it really well. And Josh said a lot of what I was going to say, including some comments on some of those individual line items. But for the most part, I'm going to try to just focus on the process and the exercise, which is aimed at enhancing efficiency in our municipal operations and protecting the Virginia Beach taxpayer is something we all agree on. I'm very supportive of that. I think it was noted about the schools' participation or lack of participation. I don't think we can have a meaningful discussion about creating efficiencies in government and spending and stewardship of tax resources without including the schools somehow in that conversation. Acknowledging all the challenges that the schools face, as well as the city of Virginia Beach faces in contending with rising costs, the impacts of inflation, the affordability crisis that people are experiencing. But in order to have a truly meaningful conversation about efficiency and process improvement and affordability in Virginia Beach, we have to include the schools as part of it. And I would request that we, and we can happy to brainstorm, happy to talk further with you about how we can somehow incorporate the schools into this process. Maybe it could be a joint committee, actually. And maybe we can't require them to. Alternatively, actually, I'm not sure that we would have to require them to, but if we we did, that might be within our purview. I think they should be part of this conversation, and they're making some big decisions as well. And I actually think, based on my conversations with members of the school board, that I think that's something that's on their mind as well. We're talking about building schools. We're talking about school expenses. We're talking about the changes in enrollment in Virginia Beach City public schools, but also at the same time there's changes in enrollment, which is shown to be declining to some degree. The expense of educating students is going up, and the needs of school employees as well as city employees is going up as well. So these are all things that we need to be thinking about. But anyway, it's a long way of saying school should be at the table, and I hope they will be. So let's talk about next steps for that, if possible.
I think that's a great idea, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And if I could just say a couple other words. I have some concerns with some of the specific line items here, but anyone would. Looking at those things, we're going into a budget retreat where the topic of what is an essential service is going to be discussed. And different people have different ideas about what is essential and their expectations about that. As you noted, there's a champion for everything that's in the city budget, and we're going to have to work through that very carefully. One question I do have so I will resist the urge, even though I'm dying to talk about some specific items in here. I'll resist the urge to do so, except for a couple of questions. The first is on the topic of the aquarium. It says increase fee, reduce expenses to break even, and you have that number listed at $2-something million. My last understanding of the analysis was that the break even number was closer to $8 million.
Do you have a recollection of that?
But you know that, at least in looking at the report that we had gotten, I think we only got a portion.
Yeah, could you go to the microphone, please? Thank you.
I stood up here and stumbled through this presentation. Bruce and Sarah have done 5 times as much work on this than I have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So the point with the aquarium that you made, I don't know if we looked at a compartmentalized component of the budget, and the line item difference we had between the expense and the revenue for that particular line item in the aquarium was $2 million. Now, there may be an overall that we didn't see. I don't know if Kevin can comment on that, but we didn't see the overall. So we saw the $2 million. We took that.
Thanks, sir.
And then, sorry, I know you're probably chomping at the bit, but where did the discussion about cultural affairs come from, and where did you come up with that number?
I'd like to say that came from my previous service on the Arts and Humanities Commission, which this council appointed me to 20 years ago. And I made the case that it was a critical $430,000 at that time, and probably $460,000 now, that the city funds arts performances and other arts opportunities. But we saw that, did we just take a 25% cut at that or something? Some of this stuff, Councilman Berlucci was quite candidly a wag, like I said on one of them, where we asked them to trim their expenses by 25% just because it was a big number.
I mean, it's a huge number, and this is an area this is the one thing that I will just drill down on further. We're on the verge of losing major cultural organizations within the city because of the cost of inflation. And so reducing the budget would only exacerbate that. But at the same time, we've heard from residents over and over and over again that they appreciate, respect, and value the types of cultural investments. And it's not just charity to arts organizations. We're talking about, for example, the creative neighborhood grants that bring people together, and the project grants that provide access to cultural programming and education to people who would not otherwise have access. So, you talk about, to me, that is an essential service. It also employs people and other things like that. It may not be also, I mean, I could go further than that, but it's a concern to me because time and time again, a creative expression, arts, culture is seen as expendable when it comes time to tighten the belt. And actually, studies performed by organizations such as Americans for the Arts, to name one, and many others show that actually public investment and partnership with the arts produces a positive. It's one of the few that actually is known and demonstrated to produce a positive economic impact on a community. And so we just need to be, I'm not saying we shouldn't take anything off the table, because it's our responsibility to leave everything on the table. And at the same time, I just want to make sure that we're not falling into that trap of including things that are historically viewed as expendable when in fact they are essential and are positive for our economy and our culture and our community.
I live in the 5 district.
Okay, I need you at the microphone. You gotta get it.
On that topic specifically, Councilmember Lucci, and again, leaning on my service on the Arts and Humanities Commission, there were $501,000 grants that organization did to Bellissima to put on a ballet show, and it turned into a 500 person in the audience performance that we wouldn't have had in the city of Virginia Beach. They may have done it in Norfolk or somewhere else if that $500 or $1,000 was not coming as a grant from the city of Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Patrick first, then Worth.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go after the council members, but I just wanted to address Mr. Bellucci's question. Just want to let council know where the process improvement steering committee started off of was actually from the fiscal year 24-25 budget. At that time, council asked us, as part of the operating budget, $1 billion budget, to give the council and the public an example of what it would look like for the city to go towards a revenue neutral rate. So some of the work that they used came off of that as well. So there were suggestions from council that said from staff to council that if council wanted to go to a revenue neutral rate, these were some of the reductions and what they would look like as part of the operations of the city. So that is some of the base ground floor of what the process improvement steering committee used to come with some of the options that they brought here to you.
Okay, thank you. Worth.
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. Martin. Thank you, and the committee. This is great work that I think is a very healthy exercise, in my opinion, that we do put everything out. And here it looks like it's not everything, to your point, Councilman Bellucci. I think cultural arts, but everything on here is going to touch a lot of folks a different way. And local governance is making choices and priorities. What is the role of local government and what is not? And folks, families are sitting down at their kitchen tables almost every day or every month or so and looking at their own personal budgets. And so I think there are ways to reduce spending, painful or not. Some of them are not painful. I do think there is some here. And I think between all 11 of us, we probably could find different ways to get there. But so that kind of brings me to kind of a question, and that is another way of potentially saving money is across the board, 1% reduction, no increase from last year. And I know you can't necessarily do that. I know a few years ago, Mr. Manager, you all in the budget office did produce a document that showed if you didn't do this, savings would be here. If you didn't do this, savings would be there. When that might have been the year we reduced the mill rate. Mm-hmm. But I think all of it's a healthy exercise because it's part of making the sausage. Mm-hmm. So I really applaud this because the cost of government, we've got to watch what the cost of government is.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, let me just say this. Started the process improvement back, I guess, about a dozen years ago. And my thought was that sometimes in government, we stand in a forest and we don't see a single tree. We're not aware of, the whole big picture. And the idea was to bring in respected community members through a broad spectrum of expertise that takes an outside objective look to take a look at what's going on and see things that sometimes we don't see. Because how many different issues do we deal with on a weekly basis that we can't be totally grasped and expert on everything? But we have a plethora of experts out in our community. We got retired generals, community people that ran multi-million-dollar corporations and things of that. So it was really, important. And, probably the most important and probably the most challenging things we do at this table is the yearly budget. And the thing is, what we're talking about is our people. So when we look at all the figures that come up on the board, and I agree with Jennifer, that, you know, what we're looking at, we're not looking at figures, we're looking at human capital, we're looking at value to what's going on. An example of that was that we committed to an experiment, a pilot program called Parks After Dark a little while ago. And that cost some money. But we have proved that that is something of value, okay? And then when you talk about Parks and Recs after school programs and things, parents depend on that because they may have to work an extra job or two. So everything that we look in terms of a number eventually comes down to, you know, somebody and realizing that we got 460,000 people live in this city. And yes, we get criticized a lot, but you know, when you think about all, and I think you brought it up, Brad, in the beginning, how much discretion we really have. Until you really start delving into a budget, it seems like 2.8 billion is a lot of money. Until you come to all the things you talk about, schools, you talk about 30 cents of that being unfunded or underfunded mandates. When you talk about we're absorbing 4 cents for the bond referendum, and I think a couple other cents for bond referendum on the rec centers and things of that nature. Yeah, you know, and there are certain things that we are just committed to that we're not flush with discretionary income. What we are flushed with are capital improvement needs of the future that we're going to have to confront, whether it be stormwater, whether it be roads, whether it be infrastructure, new schools that we're talking about. We need a leader. We got work to do with the aquarium and things like that. We're talking about astronomical, conditions we're facing in the future. But once again, I think the ultimate, and I'm really going to focus on what Jennifer said, this has got to be about, our budget's got to be about people, it's got to be about our quality of life. And somehow finding that balance is going to be the great challenge. Guess what, folks? Every municipality in this country is going to be facing the same thing. Brad, thank you. Thank you also very much.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you, cut the arts. Thank you.
Life Savings Museum, I know the director pretty well. She'd like email and text or call me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
How are you?
Good to see you. Okay, welcome.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, this next presentation will be a briefing from our planning director, Kathy Warren, and also with support from Hank Morrison, who is our comprehensive plan administrator. This is a presentation about the service plan and the proposed service plan from HRT for fiscal year 27, and also there's going to be some additional items that we want to run by council to kind of make sure that we all are on the same page as it relates to next steps with a couple of key items that are running towards expiration. So go ahead, Kathy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Thank you, Mr. Duhaney. As was mentioned, we are here to review the FY27 HRT Transportation Service Plan. I'm going to do the first few slides and then hand it off to Hank to do the details. So the overview for today's presentation is we'll talk to you about what the Transportation Service Plan is and what the process is. We'll review the current HRT Virginia Beach routes and costs. We'll go over our requested changes for FY27 and HRT's response to that request. And then we want to discuss Route 33 and a change that was made last year that you may want to consider reinstating. We'll also just do a revisit of the Bayside Micro Transit Program, and then we'll discuss next steps and have discussion. So what is the Transportation Service Plan and what is the process? This is the annual budgeting process for HRT partner cities. It's a 4-month process which begins in October. It starts with HRT providing proposed service hours via a letter to the city manager. City staff then reviews that proposal and provides a data-supported request for changes in service and cost estimates back to HRT. HRT responds with feedback and cost estimates, and then the city resubmits a final request for service for the next fiscal year. HRT finalizes Virginia Beach's state and federal funding percentages based on the service levels requested by all of the partnering cities. HRT Management Finance Advisory Committee, or MFAC, holds a January meeting to review all of the city's TSPs and then finalizes the TSP for the coming year in February. This is just the regional systems map showing all of the routes with HRT in the various cities. And then for our current routes, just a review here and our annual costs. This is for last year. We had 11 fixed route bus lines, 3 seasonal trolley routes, paratransit services, and microtransit in Bayside. Virginia Beach's FY26 TSP program cost was just at $8.6 million. Of that total cost, 7.5 was paid for out of the general fund. Just under 1.2 was paid for by the TIP fund, and the city received a reliability credit of just over $700,000 that was applied to get us to that final dollar amount of 8.6. And now Hank is going to run through the details of the upcoming year.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, good afternoon. My name is Hank Morrison. I'm the Comprehensive Planning Administrator. So going into the FY27 draft TSP, this is what we receive as staff based off of the service hours and then the cost of service as well. So the total proposed TSP is $9.5 million. And here we go. So this is a comparison of FY26 and FY27, breaking it down by which items were paid for by the general fund and which were paid for by the TIP. That this $9.5 million number is an increase of about $950,000 over from last year. And that's mostly contributed to kind of the increased cost of service hours, increased service on regional routes in Virginia Beach, like the Route 20, and then also a new collective bargaining agreement with the HRT Operators Union. So after we received the proposal, staff did request 3 changes for FY27. The first was to reinstate a circulator route, Route 34, in the resort area with the idea that it would be deployed during event days. We also requested a seasonal express route that would connect the airport, town center, and the resort area. We're thinking that could be a pilot program. And we also requested a new route to serve the Amazon facilities on Dam Neck. Staff got a response from HRT. HRT, unfortunately, is unable to program the requests for Route 34 as well as the airport due to an ongoing driver shortage that's hitting particularly the south side of Hampton Roads pretty hard. However, service to the ORF4 Amazon facility will operate between downtown Norfolk, Newtown Road Light Rail Station, Virginia Beach TCC, and then finally at the ORF4. But this route will be fully funded by the Hampton Roads Regional Transit Fund, so no additional city funds are going to be required for this. So one item that did come up recently was the Route 33 that Kathy mentioned. This route connects Virginia Beach TCC to the resort area. So last fiscal year, the length of the route was reduced because of poor ridership numbers and poor reliability. However, that change did end up impacting workers' abilities to get to their work via bus in the north end, especially. And so I put off-season in scare quotes up there because we kind of operate we don't really have an off-season anymore. So it's important for us to remember that we should be serving the workforce as well all year round. So last week, city and HRT staff, we have Noelle Pinkard and Karen Kitsis in the audience, and Mr. Harrell as well. So we met with HRT and the Virginia Beach Hotel Association to discuss the issues that they were experiencing due to that change. So as a result, staff has requested a quote from HRT to reinstate Route 33 back to its original terminus at 68th and Atlantic. It currently ends at 19th and Parks at the moment. So after we get a quote from HRT, council can decide whether or not to reinstate that original route as part of this FY27 TSP. And then lastly, we have the Bayside Microtransit Program, which was also operated by HRT. This program operated through the end of 2025, and it's funded between a split between local funding and state through the state's TRIP grant. City Council can direct HRT to pursue a second year of the TRIP grant, and that associated cost is approximately $700,000. If that occurs, service would restart in that area in May. And just as a reminder, transportation planning staff is currently in the process of drafting an RFP for microtransit service throughout the city. So next steps, we will await direction on the microtransit program. The deadline for the TRIP grant is fairly soon. It's in the beginning of February. And then we'll also await cost estimates from HRT and provide you with those costs to aid in your decision on whether or not to reinstate the route. The final deadline for any changes to the TSP is February 13th. That is a hard stop for us, or at least for staff. It's very important to note that if Virginia Beach requests any changes after February 13th, the city bears 100% of the cost associated with the service right now, whereas normally through the TSP, it's around 40%. So we definitely want to avoid, or I definitely want to avoid us paying 100% of the service cost. And so,
any questions, Josh, and then Worth, and then Cash.
Mr. Mayor, Hank, thanks very much for the presentation. I had a question for you about the microtransit service. I see it's year two, 700,000, and remind me what the total grant is, and then that's a match, right?
Right. So you can apply for up to 5 years of microtransit service, and each year the split goes more towards the cities. So it starts off with a 20% local match. The next year is a 40%, then 60 or 80, and then 100%.
So that 700, roughly $1 million, and then 1.5 in year three. So, and I think it's a tremendous service. I mean, there are people, I see them all over, and people do rely on them. The drivers are very courteous. I wonder, and I think a previous slide you said you were looking at microtransit zones in throughout the city. I worry in a sense about creating that expectation in the public's mind that we're going to be providing this service as costs continue to increase. And again, I'm not saying that it's not a service worth having and looking at, but I do think that we need to think holistically citywide.
And Mr. Mayor, and Councilmember Schulman, that's what the council said when we first got this grant, and the council also said that again last year. When we first got the grant, it was around $350,000 for the local match, and the council expressed the concern about setting an expectation that it couldn't achieve citywide, right? And then last year, the similar thing was said that, as it increases, it's going to be 1.1 next year if we were to do it now, and then 1.5. Set an expectation of something that we can only do in one geographic area of the city, when this could be a need that's done in District 7 and District 10 and other districts in the city. It'll become difficult to do, because then you'll be creating a moral obligation, in a sense, to provided for other districts when the costs, because of how the local match is set up, puts more of an onus of the city over time.
Well, sure, and I say that recognizing my colleague from District 4 takes up, a decent part of the service area along with me, and, but, I mean, regardless of whether or not Councilwoman Ross Hammond is here, I mean, that those are resources deployed up in the Bayside that may be more smartly deployed on a holistic and citywide level, especially considering the needs of the resort, and maybe private sector involvement potentially, so thank you.
Worth, Cash, and Rosemary.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Thank you, Ms. Warren and Mr. Morrison, for the presentation and the work. Could you go to slide number 8, page 8? The Route 34 circulator is not in the program, and it may, well, let me go ahead and finish the question. So is staff considering right now a circulator program to replace this?
What we are considering is a microtransit program, and that could take care of that.
That's the question, too.
Yeah, so this was the one that we were trying to reconstitute and see if it was possible to come back, but obviously because of staffing shortages, HRT isn't able to bring that. So as Kathy said, as part of our exploration for microtransit for the resort area and also to see if there's citywide options as well, we'll be looking at that as well.
Okay, Cash and Rosemary.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. Transportation is very important, right? Last time we talked about HRT, there were some discussions that I think left me as a city council member saying we are a sports-driven community, right? We are on the verge of rolling out our playbook about jobs, right? Deal. Right? We just talked about that. So we've got to have reliable transportation, not just for the people that come here to vacationing, but for our citizens, right? So microtransit was never meant to be a sustaining transportation. It was meant to be short-term. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Okay. I'm in favor of transportation. I just need it to be looked at, and I think City Manager Duhaney said it. Yes, in the areas of Bayside and the oceanfront, but if there is a sliver where it could go past District 7, 10, then I'm all in favor of that because I advocate for IE, my district, as well as the city at large. But I know we have to have these discussions because if we don't, then transportation is halted, then people are going to begin to be depressed, and then we have public safety on our hands. Okay.
Yes. No, that is exactly, we're on the same page.
Okay.
I think the RFP process will be helpful. As we get through that, we can focus in on certain zones or citywide. We'll be working through that over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Rosemary.
Well, we just had a presentation on how to save money, cut funds. And we'd all like to have transportation everywhere. But I think this whole Bayside microtransit, I think it's really brought to light how expensive and unsustainable it really is. I mean, $350,000 was one thing, but that was only 20%. So you multiply that times 5, which would, if we continued it every year, would be our responsibility. So that one little area would cost us $1.7 million. And with probably more, because as you read your CCSR this past week, the cost of HRT went up, it's going up almost $1 million. Part of that increase in cost is because they have collective bargaining now. So that $1.7 million in 5 years is probably going to be closer to $2 million. We have 10 districts. It's a lot of funds. And I don't see how we're going to be able to cut costs when we're adding those kind of costs in them. So as much as we would like to help people and do things, maybe we just need to find another way. Maybe there's a way, I'm just thinking out, which is very dangerous to think out loud. But maybe there's some other alternatives that we could look at to be more creative than to use these systems, because it's just not affordable. Our folks, I don't believe, can afford it.
Okay, Stacy.
I have to agree with the vice mayor here. Not that I have to, but I want to. But that's a good point. Here we have collective bargaining, driving up costs. We have not enough drivers, and I mean, to me, this is just a whole program that's just spiraling downward. There may be an answer, but I just don't think this is the answer.
You know, I guess since I've been mayor, one of the terms I often use is confrontation with reality. And the reality is Virginia Beach is not really geographically or demographically set up for effective transportation. The effective transportations are in the big cities that are on a grid system. Back in the day when I was living in the People's Republic of New Jersey, I could literally walk 1 block, get on the 25 Springfield bus for a quarter, take a 5-minute ride to Central Station, get on the 107, stop by Newark Airport, go through the tunnel, and get into Manhattan, in about a half an hour. And then once in Manhattan, I could take a bus or a train, it depends on what the grid system is. Virginia Beach got too many round neighborhoods. Where I live on Lake Christopher, I'd have to walk a half mile to get to a bus station. And then the other, challenge is, would a bus be able to take me to where I needed to go? Because when you think about it, we got Amazon asking now for a bus stop at a time where they're cutting buses back. They're going to have thousands of people there. Steel is asking for a bus route to drop people off on Lindhaven. The thing is, right now, and I think Rosemary touched on it, the cost would be astronomical. And one of the things I had problem with light rail, people would have to drive to get to a station to jump on it. And it may not, and then when people are working in Corporate Landing, if people are working at Oceana, if people are working, all over the place, getting an effective system, would cost billions of dollars. And, I think Rosemary's right. We got to somehow innovate, adapt, and overcome and find out something. But traditional, bus service is a challenge. And, we just got to accept the challenge and come up with plan B, whatever that might be. Okay, but, but at least it's on the table. We're discussing it. And, once again, it just goes on a list of things we've got to think about going forward. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, this last presentation is a exciting opportunity to celebrate our military heritage and our military partners and all the military staff and personnel that live, work, and reside in Virginia Beach. Amanda Jarrett, Deputy City Manager, going to give City Council an overview of this event, and it's really an informational overview to kind of let you know about the program, what we plan, and afterwards we look forward to any questions or discussions that you all may have.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wilson, members of City Council, City Manager Duhaney, and City Attorney Stiles. The following slides will cover activities that will be taking place during the weekend of April 24th through 26th, and we're thrilled to tell you about our newly planned United States Military Appreciation Weekend. So the purpose of today's briefing is to inform you of this exciting partnership with 3 organizations that have come together to create a way to honor and recognize our military community and celebrate the VA 250 here in Virginia Beach. Additionally, we'll provide you an overview of the marketing strategies for this newly highlighted event, as well as our communication strategy related to the Good Vibes Behavior and Expectations campaign that was launched last year. So in partnership with the USO, Mid-Atlantic Area of Operations, Beach Events, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Stars, Stripes, and Spurs Virginia Beach Military Appreciation Weekend will take place along Atlantic Avenue, as well as in all of the parks, 17th, 24th, and 31st Street, kicking off Virginia Beach's celebration of VA 250. I would like to take a moment and thank members of the USO who've been a longstanding partner, as well as Beach Events, for being here this afternoon as well for this important announcement of our Stars, Stripes, and Spurs weekend. So the Bulls and Barrels Beach Rodeo will again take place during this weekend, same location as in previous years on the beach at 3rd Street. This year, the rodeo has added additional seating and a new element of the running of the bulls along the beach on the evening of Friday. I will plan to be there. The best bull riders and barrel racers in the entire country will be competing for the Best of the Beach belt buckle. Again, this year, the event will be sanctioned by the Southern Extreme Bull Riding Association. Tickets will be on sale for this event beginning February 13th. The USO will have military displays along Atlantic Avenue between 17th and 21st Street, as well as a vendor and sponsorship village. And not to go into too many details in this presentation, but this gives you an order of magnitude of the entire tentative schedule of events for the weekend that are taking place in our oceanfront parks, as well as Atlantic Avenue. It is important to note that we do anticipate this event to attract in excess of 10,000 people, and to conduct the displays as planned, we will be closing Atlantic Avenue between 17th and 21st Streets. That closure will begin Friday morning to allow for load-in and setup of the displays, and the road will reopen on Sunday evening once all of the displays have been removed from Atlantic Avenue. In addition to our new celebration, I also wanted to make you aware that this same weekend, both the Convention Center and our Sports Center will be active with both national and regional events that will be taking place that entire weekend. The Convention and Visitors Bureau will be actively marketing and promoting our new celebration. They will be creating a landing page that will be pushed out through our various media outlets to drive guests to both the USO and Beach Events websites, as well as clearly indicate how you can purchase tickets for the ticketed portions of the weekend. There will be paid digital media ads that will be featured on multiple channels that will be targeting both visitors and residents. The CVB sales team will share event information with travel agencies. From the public relations standpoint, Virginia Beach once again will host an international group of media writers that weekend as a pre-FAM tour in conjunction with Travel South's Global Week, which is an event that brings international media from all over the world to our city to experience the southern United States. Additionally, the event will be included in CVB's weekly newsletter, as well as our What's New for 2026. A standalone branded release will be distributed to Drive Market and niche outlets 60 days in advance of the event as well. So as you may recall, last year we launched our 2026 Behavior and Expectations campaign. And so this is just a reminder of what that campaign looked like last year. Our city comms department is working on refreshing this for 2026. And this should play a video. There we go.
Virginia Beach, where families gather, locals thrive, and memories are made. We welcome kindness. We embrace joy. We keep the vibe positive. This isn't a party town. It's not the place for chaos, harm, or bad energy. If you're here to disrupt, this isn't your scene. But if you're here for real fun, real memories, and real good vibes, welcome. Virginia Beach is open to good energy, not bad behavior.
So as a reminder, this was last year's campaign strategy. Again, City Communications is working to refresh and tweak this initiative, but that will also start to be pushed out soon. Combining these efforts lets us reinforce safety, quality of life in Virginia Beach. It sets clear expectations of how we would like our peak season to proceed. These two campaigns position the city to proactively manage some challenges that we've experienced in the past, while maintaining our own identity and being a family-friendly destination. So in conclusion, the city looks forward to an incredible 2026 resort season. Activities start very soon. As was mentioned earlier, it's difficult to say peak season anymore because we are busy 12 months out of the year. But we are excited to partner again with USO Beach Events and our partners at VA 250 to celebrate our country's anniversary and the military community, which is such a big portion of the city of Virginia Beach. And announce our new weekend, again, Stars, Stripes, and Spurs.
Rosemary.
I love it. I really love it. This is no wonder New York Times put us on their list because of things like this. This is absolutely fantastic. And I think the people are going to love it. And I don't know who came up with this name, Stars, Stripes, and Spurs. The triple S. It's very clever. It's very clever. And I don't know what else to say other than it's just going to be wonderful. And you know, people love, besides loving our public safety, they love the military and really wrap their arms around the people who do keep us safe every day. And I just think it's fantastic. So thank everyone who has put in time to this because they deserve a huge shout out.
Yeah, Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer and Ms. Chair, and everyone, Beach Events, everyone who worked on this. I agree totally with Vice Mayor. This is very exciting. The first presentation we had today was about START, and this plays right into that. This is part of our, what we're trying to do as a city to market the city and the region to the military, to that part of our the playbook, if you will. And so this helps that. It's also the 250th anniversary, of course, of our country. A lot going on. This is in April, so this is a great time, a shoulder time of the season of the year. So this is very exciting. Thanks to everyone. So I didn't hear anything about cost here.
So previously, the USO did already conduct an event during the resort season. It was just a different date, as well as Bowls and Barrels. So what we've decided to do, because we had this theme, we've just combined it, moved the weekend, so that it's one larger, more cohesive event. There was some additional costs for the programming of the parks, but that was able to be absorbed within our existing budget.
Great.
Were you asking about cost to the public?
Yeah, I mean, so the USO is picking up a lot from what I'm hearing, and so Bowls, Barrels, and Spur, that will be out of the TIP fund because that's part of our programming with Beach Events.
Yes, so there will be portions of the events that are completely free and open to the public, and then there will be some portions of the weekend that will be ticketed. We'll follow up with the complete event schedule. I didn't want to get too far in the weeds in this presentation, but we can follow up with you on that to clearly indicate what events are, again, completely free and open to the public, and then those that are ticketed. The other thing that we are working on is to provide an area for veteran-owned businesses to set up their displays, and also partner with both our public safety, public works, and public utilities departments to display some of their equipment as well.
And public safety?
Yes,
Please.
public safety, public works, and public utilities, in addition to the military displays.
Fantastic.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, last year Worth and I attended the rodeo, and I'll tell you what, it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you what, they had quite a crowd with a couple thousand people sitting there that were really energized. But here's the thing that you know really impresses me, that we got so many different types of things throughout the summer at the oceanfront that appeals to a multitude of people. And I think that's it's really kind of cool. And the other thing is, this is what a tremendous launch in the mid-April, to get the season rolling. Once again, I think one of the goals we have is to get rid of the shoulder seasons and go year round. And I think this really helps. Amanda, thank you and the crew, Bill, everybody, USO, appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. Any council discussions, initiatives, comments? Rosemary?
A couple of years ago, I brought up the idea of, instead of our districts having numbers 1 through 10, that we name our districts. And I think we were still in flux with our election system, and also the staff came up with a beautiful plan, but it had kind of a high price tag, which I don't think we really need to spend that kind of money on it. But just recently, I've had several people come up and say, I just can't remember the number, this number system. It's just very confusing, and these are people who are pretty engaged and pay attention. And so I'm going to mention it again, so that, and the timing might be really good, that instead of having District 8, you could have a name for it like we used to. We used to have.
I'll take Lynn
Okay. You know, and you know, Kempsville, we used to always have names, Rose Hall and all that, and it was a lot easier for people to remember. So I just thought I would bring it up again and see if there's any interest in doing it, and wouldn't want us to do anything until after November, you know, because we have elections and all that. Maybe something could come up for next year, and we could, depending on everybody's interest for their own district, you know, you could get creative about it. You could have a contest, name your district, and have school kids get involved, and just different, you know, and each council person could kind of be in charge of the naming of their own district. But I don't know, does this sound like a crazy idea, or does anybody have any interest in this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think we should go ahead and, you know, talk about it and everything, and, you know, maybe even, you know, there were discussions, you know, have it like a park with a very nice sculpture that represents the identity of, you know, what's going on. But somehow I think, you know, Cassius can be stuck with District 7, but. Patrick.
Well, it could be name 7. That could be your name.
I like it, I like it.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, staff, we initially briefed council, and then council made it pretty clear that they wanted us to figure out a way to do it budget neutral. And then we came back with some options, but around that time, there was another situation that kind of delayed that effort. We can bring that back to council at another briefing for council to kind of give a quick overview to see if council's okay with us moving forward and come up with a proposed timeline. And then we can work to initiate that process again.
Okay, great. Okay, anybody else? Michael?
Thank you. I'm gonna try to make this as abbreviated as possible, since I'm not sure I can recall from memory everything that was in the briefing or in the materials that we received. But you've heard me before talk about the implementation or the necessity for a process for street renaming and honorary street renaming. It's really important, in my view, that we initiate that process outside of any particular request, so that it doesn't reflect on any individual organization that a street is being contemplated to be named or renamed or honorary named for. I believe that you asked for direction around that, and maybe you could fill us in a little bit more on that would look like, and also, if you're looking for direction, I would like to request that we move forward with starting that process to, I'm not in a position to evaluate the aspects that were included or not included in the particular information that you share with us, but I do think we need a process, and I hope the council would agree with that.
Mr. Mayor, coming out of your last retreat in September, City Council asked us to do some research, environmental scan, and provide an update to council. And we did that probably in one of the most recent packages we sent to you all. And then the next step from that was to take it up in the upcoming retreat.
Okay.
So we do have it as a day 2 on a half day item under governance for council to talk about where it wants us to go next with honorary street namings, as well as also election signage election day signage is also there, and a couple other things as well. We got earmarked for the governance section of your retreat.
I would even include any honorary namings.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else at this point? Cash?
Council comments. I don't know how to say this, but to say it, I care about our firefighters. And a lot of that comes from my background of being classroom certified by the fire department in California. So I have a great deal of respect for our firefighters. With that being said, I heard, and I need to say it in this venue, that Norfolk is looking to hire 140 firefighters to fill out a fourth shift with a transition date of July 2027. Now, the reason I'm saying something about this, and I think it needs to be on the table, is because what I've seen since I've been in government is that employees go from Norfolk to Chesapeake, to Virginia Beach, and I don't want Virginia Beach to be left high and dry, especially since we have so many great events coming up for the summer. And when I mean great events, we can't afford a deficit. And so, Mr. Mayor, as being one of the newest council members, I may not know the protocol of what to say, but I just want to sound a little alarm so that everyone knows that I care about this city, and I do. And our firefighters, I care a lot about.
Cash, let me say that, and I appreciate, but let me put it this way, and let me put it this way: this council has been and always will be responsive to, public safety. Last year, fire chief came in, said he needed 60 new people, and we gave him 30 last year. We gave him 30 this year. They said they needed more money for cancer screening. We gave them over another $1 million. They need another ladder truck. We gave it. Police came in, asked for a salary survey. We did that. What did we give, 15, 16%? About 15%. We have been reactive. We're very in tune of competition, and whether we like it or not, because every time we bump up, the other cities bump up too. But the thing is, we have been there. But I'll tell you what, if you take a look at the investment that we have a state-of-the-art fire academy. And then we have excellent leadership in there. And, the cost of, constant equipment, we got to buy them new gear all the time. And I tell you what, we have, one thing, if we have a point of pride that we can point to, we take care of our public safety. We take care of all of our employees. But once again, we take care of the people that take care of us. We realize that it's an essential 24/7. They save lives of the amount of training they go through. But, be assured that, let me put it this way. A lot of people like working in Virginia Beach, and we're going to keep it that way. Yeah, Josh.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to let the council know and the public, I will be unable to attend the meeting next Tuesday. I'll be out of the country. So, Clerk, if you could circulate a letter, thank you.
Yeah, I hope it's not a witness relocation program.
I'll be back.
All right, I just got a couple of things. We got acknowledged recently by Wallet Hub as being one of the most caring cities in the country. And to me, that is, and I think to us, that's a big deal. That sets us apart from, so many other things. And on the 8th, I went to a thing and I did a proclamation for a group I never heard of. And it's called the Faith Works, Coalition. It was Catholic St. Nicholas Church up on Little Neck and everything. And what these folks do? They go around to elderly and disabled people's homes and fix it up, when they get leaks and do things. And they just did their 2,000th home that they did. And how many micro groups do we have in this city out there doing stuff like this? I mean, it's positively amazing. I just think that, these are the groups that should be highlighted and everything. And I just, wanted to bring up, let me know. And the other thing is, Patrick, we got Restaurant Week coming up. Do we have any type of special announcements or anything we can do to really push it forward?
It looks,
No,
I know we
yeah.
did. Matt, you want to come and speak to it? Okay, cool.
Absolutely. So we're excited to kick off Restaurant Week in just a few short days. So we'd highly recommend that all of your New Year's resolutions stop for that moment. We have a 25% increase in participation by our restaurant community. There's a very significant marketing blast going out across the entire Mid-Atlantic with support from CVB, our city communications office, and the Restaurant Association. It's, again, another wonderful partnership, and they have a really incredible website that I would recommend everyone take a moment and check out.
I knew you were doing stuff. But
Absolutely.
that's good. Now everybody knows. But I'll tell you what, we truly value, the restaurant and the businesses, our tourism, and, we just value, the businesses that we have in the city. And I'll tell you what, keep it coming. One thing I enjoy doing is the ribbon cuttings. That's a good thing. All right, anybody else at this point? All righty. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from the open meetings allowed by section 2.23711A Code of Virginia is amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property, discussions or considerations of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or of disposition of publicly held property. Where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A3, and that's District 2, District 6, and personnel matters. Discussions, considerations, or interviews of the prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees, any public body pursuant to section 2.23711A1, and that's boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley and Hutchinson are both absent. Councilmember Jackson Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Remick.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross Stevens absent. Councilmember Rouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Schulman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
8-0.
Okay. We are recessed to close. Do we need a little break coming up? Yeah, we're going to reconvene. Do I have a motion to certify the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Berluci.
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Councilmember Henley and Hutchinson. Councilmember Jackson Green.
Aye.
Councilmember Remick.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross Stevens absent. Councilmember Rouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Schulman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
5 vote 8-0. You certify the closed session.
Thank you all.
Henley.